Daven Michaels, welcome.
Hey, great to be here, Sammy. Thanks for having me.
Well, I've heard about you for years from a mutual friend of ours, Darren Jacklin, and now Sir Darren Jacklin.
Great friend and advocate.
Yeah, well, you guys have known each other for, 10 years
Yeah,
now?
about a decade, yeah.
How did you first meet?
Well, it's a very cool story, actually. A lot to be gleaned from it. So, as a speaker, spoken in 51 countries all over the globe, and sometimes, and if you're a speaker, you can relate to this, you're promised a room full of people, and you show up and nobody's there, very few people. So I was in the Philippines, which is where my company was located, and I traveled, 22 hours to speak at this, what was supposed to be a big event in San Diego. There were supposed to be hundreds of people. I got there, and there were 12 people in the room, and that used to really upset me. And that doesn't happen often, but it happens. And
Right.
that used to really upset me until I realized that something always comes from an event, no matter what, no matter how many people are in the room. There's always going to be a great connection, great relationship, great friendship. And so I showed up to this event in San Diego. There were like 12 people in the room, but one of those people was Darren Jacklin.
Right.
And Darren, I think this was before this had happened, but within a couple of years, he had joined the board of eXp Realty, which is now poised to be the biggest real estate company in the world in the next few years. And he just took a liking to me and became a great friend and advocate. And when he got on the board of eXp, he brought us into eXp. We handled the customer service for eXp for a long, long time. We still have agents with eXp, and so that became a great account for us. And then so many wonderful things came from that. I made a ton of money, made some great connections and great friends over the years because of that relationship with Darren. So it's been a wonderful friendship and partnership as well.
It's amazing when you think about that story. Had there been a full room, the odds are you and Darren would not have had an opportunity to really connect.
Maybe.
So at a failure.
Maybe not. I believe that we live in this kind of omnipresent universe where I think everything happens at the same time. So I probably in 10 lifetimes became best friends with him, did a million deals with him, and other ones I just walked out of the room and didn't connect with him. Who knows? But whatever it was, it became a great relationship and friendship, and so
what year was that?
Very grateful. I don't know, but I'm really bad with dates and times and stuff.
Right.
But if we're in 26 now, maybe somewhere around 2015.
That's amazing. Actually, 2016, he was down in Mexico with me, and he mentioned this stupid little company that he was part of, and
it became a force of nature, right? It's really extraordinary.
How long have you been a speaker?
$1 billion company.
Yeah, no kidding.
Been a speaker, it seems like a decade, but I think it's almost 15 years now.
Right. So you started around 2021.
No. I started around 2010, 2011.
See, how's my math? Your memory, my math.
Yeah.
What a pair.
Yeah. There you go.
Now, you're how old now?
I don't like to advertise it, but I'm now 60, so I'm not happy about it. But
when's your birthday?
I am in the best shape of my life.
You
so
are actually.
About that. My birthday's in February.
Okay, so you're born February 1965.
6.
So I'm November 14, 1965. You're literally, I'm only like a few months older than you.
Yeah.
Darren is quite younger than both of us. And he's actually accomplished quite a bit too. But it turns out you have a very similar backstory to Darren and somewhat similar to mine. You want to share with us a little bit about how Daven became Daven?
Sure. I don't think Darren and I really have similar stories, but I really don't know that much about Darren's story. But for me, interesting story. I was an only child. I had incredible parents. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, but never wanted for anything.
Yeah. Where?
We grew up I grew up in Southern California, in Orange County. And my dad was a company man, worked for the same company for 40 years, and never made more than about $30,000 a year. There was a cap on his income because he didn't have a college education, which that's how it was back then. And my mom was a homemaker and took care of me. So we never had a lot of money, but it was a different time.
Well, how did you do in high school?
Terrible. I didn't do particularly well in high school.
Okay.
I graduated high school at 16, but not because I was a good student. It was because I was just motivated. I didn't like high school. So
you wanted out.
Yeah, so I graduated a couple of years early, wanted to start my business, but my parents wanted me to go to college. And
Your business, sorry, you said you wanted to start a business at 16?
At 15. At 15. And I did start that business at 15.
What was it?
I was in the clothing business. So I designed clothing for music groups. My bands had nothing going on, but an incredible thing happened. Most were playing their garage, but then MTV came on the air, changed the face of music, changed my life. I was working with these bands that had nothing going on. Within a few months, most of my bands had record deals. Within a year, they were selling millions of albums.
You were a producer, you were an agent, or you were a singer? Or what?
No, I was designing clothing for these bands. And started with nothing, and within a year, my bands were playing stadiums of like 50,000 people. So that was my first business, and that kind of launched me. From there, I started a telecommunications company, nothing really glamorous there, but I sold the company to a public company, and I took back stock in that deal, and then that company was acquired, and that moment in time changed my life. From there, I became the biggest EDM event producer in the US. I would throw parties for like 20,000 people a night. And because of that built-in fan base, I had a short career as a recording artist, a very long career as a music and television producer. That was about 15 years. I worked with some of the biggest bands in the world at the time. And then I started this sleepy little company. So I had this production deal in Southeast Asia with another producer, and just happened to start this little company, little phone room to kind of take care of our business. And then I kind of failed through it, but eventually figured it out. And then one day I was like, well, maybe we could offer this as a service. And so we started offering it, and we failed there a couple times, but eventually it worked. Started this little company. We were in the business of outsourcing for entrepreneurs, for small businesses. And it was an interesting time because we were first to market. A lot of people think being first to market is an advantage, but I always say you can always tell who the pioneers are because they're the ones with the arrows in their back. And that was certainly us. Entrepreneurs needed what we had, but they didn't want it.
But what specifically were you offering, and what was like missing?
Well, we were business process outsourcing, so it was outsourcing for small businesses, and entrepreneurs needed it, but they didn't want it because they didn't know it existed. We were first to market, and so I realized early on that if we wanted to have a market, we would have to somehow carve that out. So we adopted an educational model. I started writing books, eventually became a New York Times bestselling author, started creating info products. I started speaking on stages globally. We started doing our events all over the world.
What were
Australia.
you speaking about?
Well, so let me just finish this. So started doing events all over the globe, Australia, US, Europe, Asia, New Zealand, and we began educating our prospects and turning them into clients. And although today I'm now on the board of that company, it's still a methodology that we use today. But to answer your question, I spoke on outsourcing and marketing. So
okay, so you had a very niche market. You were basically dealing with the entrepreneurs and showing them something that they had no clue existed.
Small businesses, yeah. My second book hit the New York Times bestsellers list, and when that happened, that kind of opened up the world of enterprise level companies for us as well. So small businesses, we talked about business process outsourcing and marketing. To larger companies, we talked about customer service.
Now, when you're referring to outsourcing, I guess at that point, we're talking in the 90s now?
No. I started the company around 2008.
2008. So there
was no infrastructure in the 90s for that, no internet.
No, it would seem like there was. Well, the internet didn't come in until about 95, 98.
Yeah, so it wouldn't have been possible.
And then into the 2000s, people started to recognize that they could use the Philippines, they could use India and such, and you actually connected. So did you actually fly to these countries, make deals, come back and then set up, or did you organize companies over there, or did you just make calls, or did you use the internet for it?
No. We built big buildings and filled them with people over there. So I lived there, and we had several centers.
You don't do anything small, do you?
I try not to. Who wants to play small?
Well, it seems like the amount of energy that's required to do any one of these types of businesses, like I can see the flow of how they all developed one bit by bit and how they piled onto each other, all starting back with working with bands and then growing larger with not just one band, but with dozens of bands, and then from small stages to large stages. And it seems like what you do is if I'm understanding you correctly, you take a business idea, you start it off with a small test market kind of thing, and then when you figure out how to get the bugs worked out, then you scale it as quickly as possible.
Correct.
Now, do you turn around and sell every one of those companies within a couple of years?
So it's interesting. So every company we created, we always start with the outcome in advance. So we're always building a company to scale and exit. So that's always the plan. Is this something that can be scaled and sold?
Sure.
Otherwise, we don't approach it. And it's the same thing. We use a variation of that for all the books too. So I've written 10 books now, and those books are always used to grow the company. So anytime that we launch a company, quite often, not always, but quite often we'll have some sort of asset like a book.
Sure.
And so it's the same thing. When we write the book, we look at, what do we want the book to do for us? And then we build back the funnel backwards to make that happen. So yeah, we're always looking to scale and exit. We're looking to do it as quickly as possible.
All right.
Now, having said that, sometimes it doesn't happen fast. So my last company, 123 Employee, took 15 years. It was not a rapid growth company.
Right.
I mean, it was a rapid growth company. We grew really quickly in the beginning, and then we kind of, chucked around for a while. And then COVID, we doubled our size during COVID. And then, of course, it made sense to exit. So,
I'm hearing this. I'm telling you honestly, I had no clue. I literally had no clue, because when people talk about you, it's always in a singular, okay, he's doing this event, or he's done this, or I know Daven through this one thing.
Sure.
But you've literally started from, at the age of 15. And now okay, this is where I have to ask, who are your inspirations and mentors at that point? Because some 15-year-old kid doesn't come up with all this by himself.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So I've been blessed to have so many great mentors over the years. But the two most important mentors in my life, I always say, were my rich dad and my poor dad. I had both. Okay, so I spoke about my dad, who raised me, who was my poor dad, who I mentioned earlier. Yes, financially, he didn't have a ton of money. We weren't poor. We were like lower middle. It was a different time back then.
Sure,
right?
But he's a good man.
So he was not wealthy, but he was wealthy in every other way. He was a magnificent man. He was the most beautiful human being I knew. He loved people, and people loved him right back, which is something that I got from him. He was a master storyteller, and he was just a wonderful human being. He got up every morning, planted his feet on the ground, was just grateful to be alive. He lived in a state of gratitude before it was in vogue. And so that was my poor dad, wonderful human being, rich in every other way. And then I had my rich dad. My rich dad was my Uncle Mo. So my Uncle Mo was the smartest man I ever knew. Just like my dad, grew up poor, son of a junkyard dealer, one of 10 kids, became a prolific Beverly Hills doctor. He was Ronald Reagan's doctor during his presidency. Wonderful human being. And my Uncle Mo lived in Beverly Hills. And so on holidays, I was very close with that family, that side of the family. And so on the holidays, we would go up to my Uncle Mo's house. And he lived in a big mansion, and there were great toys and fun things to do, and it was wonderful. And then we went back to my world. And then next holiday, we'd go back to Beverly Hills, and it was incredible, and the new cars, and this, and that. And we went back to my world. And at a very young age, probably I remember by the time I was 10 or 12, I was hungry. I wanted that world. I wanted that world.
Yeah.
I wanted that world. And that motivated me. And that motivated me to really excel in anything having to do with finances. And so I was actually in retail clothing at 15.
But why retail clothing? I mean,
it's just what I landed in. And I was passionate about clothes. I liked fashion at the time. And so I thought that was going to be my life. And then one day, my Uncle Mo, who was the smartest man I knew, and I would do whatever he said without question, because he was the wisest person I ever knew.
Sure.
And so one day he said, you need to start your own business. And that was never on my radar. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? He said, well, listen, there's a lot of wealthy people, men in Puerto Rico, in Beverly Hills. Yeah. I live in Puerto Rico. There are wealthy professionals in Beverly Hills who have lots of money, but they don't have time. He said, you're going to go shopping for them, you're going to buy their clothes, you're going to number their clothes, and you're going to put them in their closets. And so I started that. And that wasn't really my passions, but that turned into my clothing company, which my passion at the time was like music, and this was in the early '80s, and so then that became my business. And so really my last job, I think I bussed tables and made pizzas at 15, and then that was the last time I ever worked a job. And so I always say, if I wasn't self-employed, I'd be flipping burgers, because I was a college dropout. I dropped out within the first year because my business took off. So yeah, I'm basically qualified to work fast food or be an entrepreneur. So, yeah.
Well, your mind works incredibly fast. Anybody that's been around you, and you speak. Would you say your mouth moves faster than your mind, or your mind moves faster than your mouth?
My mind moves faster than my mouth. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So sometimes I stumble on my words because
how do you handle? Well, then how do you handle conversations when the average person doesn't work as their mind doesn't work as fast and their words?
I mean, look, we're all built differently, or you just chill out. I mean, it's no big deal. It's I love people, and so I probably just sync up with whatever I'm picking up whatever somebody's putting down. So
now you operate and resonate at a much higher frequency than the average individual, and I've met thousands.
I appreciate that, but I don't know if there is an average individual. But yeah,
I'm going to start. I have to use the term because I don't like the word normal.
Right.
But most people aspire to average. A lot of people are afraid to go and take the risks that you've taken.
Maybe.
Why did you feel that you could overcome, even though you had failures? You knew the failures were coming, but how did you handle the fear of it?
Well, I don't think I knew the failures were coming. I was pretty fearless when I was young, and I just took big risks and went for it, because what did I have to lose? I didn't have anything, So in the early days, I had nothing.
Well, no, you had put a lot of time into things, and you would have lost the time.
Yeah,
and as you got older, you would lose more and more time, so you have to be more precise with your time.
Probably, but I didn't start really valuing my time till later in life, right? Because when you're young, you've got all the time in the world.
That's true. It's a failure of the youth.
Yeah, and exactly. Youth is wasted on the young, and I don't think I didn't value my time, and my time financially was not worth a lot back then, right? Now it is, but back then it wasn't.
No.
I didn't have anything. So I had two parents who knew nothing about entrepreneurship, but yet encouraged me to do whatever I wanted to do, whether it was a dumb idea or a smart idea, because they really didn't know the difference, right? I mean,
sure.
They weren't entrepreneurs, and they just encouraged me to do whatever, and so that's exactly what I did.
All right, so that's California. All of this was happening in California. Yeah. Now, you mentioned that you went to Asia. What was the transition there?
Yeah, so I had a friend of mine that this was back when I was in music production. He was a producer as well, very prolific. He was really great. And he had a deal in Southeast Asia. And he was pretty buried. He needed my help in that project, so I agreed. And so that just put me on that side of the world quite a bit, a long time ago.
And what year was this now?
Well, probably around 2006 or 7.
So at 2006, you weren't fully successful yet. You had dough. You had a couple of successes.
I was actually pretty happening by then. So I had my public deal. I was the biggest EDM event producer in the U.S.
EDM is
electronic dance music.
Thank you.
I was now in production, so I'd already kind of hit my stride.
All right, so you're a wealthy young guy, you're good looking, and now you're sitting in Asia and you could live for free. Basically, it's very cheap. Why did you keep going?
I made my first mill at 26. Why did I keep going? Well,
yeah.
I mean, I hadn't done anything yet. I was just getting going.
Yeah, but you're a wealthy 26-year-old guy living in Asia. A lot of people would have stopped there.
Nah, I mean, there was too much to do still. Too many things to conquer and create. And
did you ever lose it all?
Oh yeah, several times.
Really?
Yeah. A few times, not several, but a few times.
Now, was it because of other people, or was it because you made some bad error or like mistakes? Did you have poor judgment in people? What did you learn out of that?
I would say they were all probably my mistakes. You know, hubris.
Mm-hmm.
You have a ton of money, you think you're unstoppable, and you can't lose
sure.
it now, right? And then you make big gambles, and then
right.
you lose it, and you learn over time. But most of the most successful people I know have blown it at least a few times.
Right, but they handle it differently now. So when you suddenly realized, oh, damn, I got to start over again, and I lost everything that I had built up.
Yeah.
How did you handle that?
Well, you kind of lose it for a minute, right? And then you just kind of regroup, and you just kind of say, okay, I'm buried in this thing right now. I'm going to take a little time away from it for a minute, right? Clear my mind, and then once you clear your mind, new stuff comes in, and then you come up with a new plan.
Well, you believed in yourself, and you had the skills, so you knew you could do it again.
Yeah,
Did you lose the contacts, though? Did you lose the respect? And did it?
No.
You know, they say that when people are wealthy, they get lots of friends, lots of people around. But as soon as you fail, people disappear.
Yeah.
What did you discover in that time?
Yeah, that was never my experience. Yeah, you know, sometimes you just have to reinvent yourself. I mean, it is what it is. You know, you don't think about it. You don't dwell on how you've blown it.
Well, you got to cry for a minute.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But then you got to pick yourself up. You know, dust yourself off, and and reinvent yourself and make something happen.
Were you ever taken advantage of by somebody that you lent money to or that you trusted?
Yeah, many times.
Many times.
Yeah, many times.
Did that change your trust and faith in people?
No, not at all. Many times, because I'm the type of person that really, I'll trust you and give you the benefit of the doubt until such time as you kind of show me that that's not who you are. My wife is the total opposite of that. Like, she doesn't trust people until she trusts them. I basically, if we meet, I kind of trust you until such time as you show me that you're not someone I can trust. And I'm not somebody that goes on blind faith, but I love humanity. I love people. That's what fills me up and juices me. So, you know, if we meet, unless I really don't like you, which is highly unlikely, you know, I will like you. I'll be open to working with you or doing something with you, unless you show me that's an error.
As I've grown, I'm 60. You and I are around the same age. I've discovered that, you know, as we're developing ourselves, we develop a personality so that we can connect with the masses. We can connect with a lot of people. We want to network all the time. Yeah. You're incredible at that. But the other thing I learned is to manage energy. And when you're surrounded by thousands of people who all want your time and they all want a piece of Daven and they all want to see what they, you know, by proximity, that's going to benefit them. How do you manage that? Yeah.
So I love people and I feed off of people. So it's generally not an issue for me. Like, if somebody's going to say, like, hey, do you want to just chill out or do you want to go hang out and do something with people? My choice is always going to be to hang out with people. But I do have a very large community now. And so if I do one of my events, like, we just got off the San Juan Social Club cruise, which we can talk about, which we had last week. And we had 550 of our friends from all over the globe. And I love it. I mean, last week was the greatest week of my life. Yeah. It was incredible.
Well, there was two reasons for that.
There were. And we can talk about that too. But and so I loved it. But I can't walk around without people kind of, hey, Daven, hey, you know, grabbing me, wanting to talk a little bit or this, that, which I love. But yes, I do need a little break from that action just to kind of recharge a little bit. And this worked out really well. Most of the time when you guys were in ports, I just stayed on the ship. Yeah. And then I got my downtime, and it was the perfect balance for me. Actually, it was, like I said, greatest week of my life. Had a good time.
You got married last week.
I got married last week. So on the cruise, we got married as well. Should we talk a little bit about the San Juan Social Club?
Absolutely.
Okay. So for my books, I have a global following, probably global reach, about 1.5 million people who kind of follow what I'm up to. But in Puerto Rico, where I live, which happens to be a tax haven, I started a little group several years ago to bring us expats together with locals for food, conversation, and networking. Today, we have about 6,000 amazing movers, shakers, and change makers in the San Juan Social Club. And as you can imagine, because Puerto Rico is a tax haven, it attracts a really high-level group of people. It's pretty neat. When I moved to Puerto Rico, I knew a couple of billionaires. If you asked them if they knew me, they'd probably say no. Yeah. Today, I've got 20 on speed dial, and we go jet skiing together. So of course, it's really upped my game. So anyways, I thought it was important that we all come together. And because it's easy, if you live somewhere, to just click with your own people, right? I could have just hung out. Matter of fact, for the first decade that we lived in Puerto Rico, we kept houses in two places. So one was a kind of a bubble, a community called Palmas del Mar, and then we also have a place in San Juan. And in that bubble, we have all these expats, and we have locals too, but there's a whole expat community there, and they all hang out together. And that's easy to do. But I thought it was important to bring us all together for a lot of different reasons. And so I created this community to do it. When I started, it was 95% expats, like me. But the goal was to bring us all together on an equal level. And so today,
well, sorry, but they say that when you go into a place like this, you're either wanted or unwanted. So
we were primarily wanted, which is great. But I wanted, you know, when I say primarily wanted, not everybody wanted it, but I wanted to fix that systemically, one person at a time. Sure. And so today it's 50-50. So, which is exactly what we wanted. And so once a month, I do an event to bring us all together. I do it as a public service. And then once a year, I do a cruise on Virgin, the San Juan Social Club.
Why did you choose Virgin?
Well, that's really interesting. That's a really good question, Sammy. So when I wanted to do this, the San Juan Social Club cruise is 70% fun, 30% business. And so 30% of the business is like we have speakers and meetups and so on and so forth. And to have speaking sessions, you need to have days at sea.
Yeah.
And most cruises leave out of Florida, and so you've got a couple days in and out.
Right.
But when you leave out of the Caribbean, you really don't have days at sea. You could be in a port every day, which is cool, but it's not cool for an event at sea.
It's a networking event,
right.
And seminars, etc.
Exactly. And so there were only two options. One was Royal Caribbean, and it was a very old boat. My people wouldn't have liked that. And the other was Virgin, but at the time, Virgin was just a startup.
Yeah.
Virgin was born during COVID. They were having some challenges. And right at that time, Virgin had just taken a $500 million bridge loan. And so the consensus in the industry was that Virgin wasn't going to make it. You couldn't get insurance for Virgin. The big bookers were saying, don't book Virgin. And Virgin was kind of the only game in town for us. And so we decided to pull the trigger. It was a big risk financially. I was really concerned about it. Because if Virgin failed and went bankrupt, people would have probably blamed me and not Virgin, right? And so
you sunk the ship.
Exactly. And so I went ahead. We took the plunge, and it worked out really well. And if you haven't been on Virgin yet, Virgin is reinventing the game for adult cruisers.
I'll agree. I've been on 60 cruises, and most of them were on NCL.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is my first time on. In fact, I just heard something, and you can confirm it. You weren't actually supposed to do last week. It was supposed to be this week because of the multiple sea days, and you switched it. Is that correct?
Yeah, partially correct. So originally, the challenge that we have with our Virgin itinerary is that there's only 2 routes in the Caribbean.
Okay,
and we leave out of San Juan, Puerto Rico, and so basically we'll just be flip-flopping the same routes every other year.
Sure.
Now, our cruise is really not about where you're going. It's about the people, the experience, and the amenities. But after you've gone to the same ports 4 or 5 times, you may not want to keep going. And so I was concerned that we'd always have a revolving door. And so we created this really cool itinerary when we were on last year's cruise for this year. And we said, hey, we're going to do something different. We're going to leave from San Juan. And instead of doing the Caribbean, we're going to go, we'll do partial Caribbean. We're going to go to Tortola, from Tortola to Dominican Republic, and then from DR, 4 days at sea, plenty of programming.
Right.
And then we're going to do Charleston, South Carolina, Newport, Rhode Island, and then New York City. And that was I thought that was the coolest schedule ever, right? It sounded so neat. But, people vote with their wallet, and our cruisers didn't want to do it. They want to stay in the warm weather.
What do you mean go cold? I'm trying to go south, and you're asking me to go north.
Exactly.
Right.
So we had to pivot and change back to the Caribbean. But that was last week, and so this week is the honeymoon cruise. So we brought about 27 of our friends like you, Sammy, on this cruise. This is just more intimate, and we're actually doing that route right now.
Well, we should clarify. The reason it's the honeymoon cruise is...
because I got married.
They got married last week.
Yeah, we had 550 people at our wedding. It was pretty cool. Little known fact, I got married once before decades ago.
Okay.
I was married young, probably shouldn't have been married, it didn't work out. But I actually had 4,200 people at that wedding.
Whoa.
And it was televised on MTV. So, yeah.
Really? Were you that talking head guy?
No. No, I wasn't Max Headroom.
Yeah, Max Headroom. You remember that? Man, God, are we that old? You married this incredible woman. I actually just met her briefly, and I loved listening to what she had to say on stage.
Yeah, it was very touching.
Yeah. So why did you pick her, and who is she? Tell us a little about her.
Well, Liz and I met nearly 19 years ago. So getting married was never that important to us. We both had failed marriages, but spending time together was. And we were an experiment that we knew would never work out.
Right.
She was a single mom, just kind of trying to stay afloat and take care of her kids. And I was a Hollywood Hills producer, parties at my house every night, crazy. But somehow we met in the middle. I think I needed to come down to earth a little bit, and she needed to have a life. And so we kind of met in the middle, but there was never this expectation. We just were enjoying each other's company. We knew it wasn't going to work out. So we were just having fun. And here we are nearly 2 decades later. We have grown kids and a wonderful life. And now, finally, as of last week, we got married. And we figured it would just be fun to do. We have all our friends together in one place. And so we did it. And
Your son's a producer, does movies and directs?
No. My kid works in the service industry in Vegas. So
in Vegas,
yeah, he
okay.
works for Planet Hollywood.
And he's how old now?
23.
So what's the future for San Juan? I mean, you've got big plans. I heard something crazy, and I need you to confirm this. You're putting together $1 billion fund?
I am. It's actually, it acts like a fund, but it's really a capital acquisition vehicle. So Puerto Rico has gone through 20 years of a tough time. Mm-hmm. So a little Puerto Rican history. So Puerto Rico's number one export is tax incentives because it's a territory, not a state. They have their own tax authority, and the U.S. allows them to offer incentives to bring people to the island to attract money and brain power to affect change, and it really, really works. And so Puerto Rico was the crown jewel of Latin America for decades. Mm-hmm. At one time, Puerto Rico enjoyed the highest home ownership rate of anywhere in the nation. I believe the number was 65%. It was either 65 or 85%, but unbelievable. And Puerto Rico just had an incredible time. And what was happening is probably the biggest incentive was Section 931, which later became 936. And that law, if you will, that tax program attracted manufacturing to Puerto Rico, specifically drug manufacturing. All the biggest drugs, Bear aspirin, Viagra, and what have you, were manufactured in Puerto Rico. And it was pretty much like this. Basically, if you were a manufacturer, you could come to Puerto Rico, and if you kept your money in Puerto Rico for a decade, you could have that money tax-free when you repatriated. And so,
a hell of a deal considering the numbers we're talking about.
It was a great deal. And so as a result, there was probably 15, 16, 17, 18, a lot of banks in Puerto Rico. All the big banks were there. The banks were flush with cash, and they lent money at very favorable interest rates. And so, that's why you had so much home ownership, and that's why you had so much prosperity. But Puerto Rico's Achilles heel is their government. A lot of mistakes have been made over the decades, and during that whole time, eventually 936 went away. Clinton wanted to enact NAFTA, and they also wanted to bring back that manufacturing to the States. But a lot of the politicians in Puerto Rico knew that was never going to happen. It just would go elsewhere. And that's where it went to Dominican Republic and other domiciles. And when that happened, when 936 went away, Puerto Rico went into a 20-year decline. Puerto Rico ended up filing bankruptcy. They had Zika, they had COVID, the GFC, the list goes on. The hurricane, of course, 100-year Hurricane Maria. So many things happened in Puerto Rico, and it was a 20-year down cycle, really, really bad. Now, thanks to tax incentives and other things, Puerto Rico is on the upswing. They're flush with billions of dollars from FEMA money. They still need the infrastructure to spend it. Still a lot of challenges in Puerto Rico, but Puerto Rico is on the upswing. And so I forgot, what was the initial question? It was, do you remember what
we were looking forward?
Oh, yes, the big plans, the billion dollar acquisition plan. So one thing Puerto Rico still doesn't have is good private equity, okay? Because we don't have a good bank rating. We don't have a good rating as a territory. Sure. But that will change over time. The bankruptcy has been resolved. So we don't have access to good private equity. We don't have access to a lot of inexpensive, good capital. And I thought to myself, I actually threw an event. I do an event every month, but I did an event. So actually, when I do my San Juan Social Club events, we have 3 types. We have social, which is what most of the events are. We also have philanthropic, and we have learning events. So a couple of months ago, I did a learning event called Tokenize Puerto Rico. It was all about tokenizing RWA's real-world assets. And it was an incredible event. I flew in all these large asset owners from all over, and then we had the companies that were tokenizing, the best companies of RWAs, and it was just great. But on that Sunday morning, on the next morning, I had this big epiphany. I think that we have the tools and the ability to create something that mimics private equity for Puerto Rico and beyond, because I have so many contacts all over the globe. And so essentially what we're doing is I've formed this relationship with a group that has raised billions of dollars through marketing of Reg A's. And so essentially what we'll do is we file a Reg A. If you're not familiar with Reg A, Reg D. Reg D is for qualified investors, which is what so many deals are. Reg A is anybody, is crowdfunding. Anybody can invest in these deals. And so we basically do a Reg A. We will follow it up with a Reg D. That Reg A allows us to raise up to $75 million per project per year. And then we kick in this marketing engine. We create the assets and the collateral, and then we run traffic to bring in the investors. And so that's great. And when you do something like that, what do you need? Well, you need a great company, right? A sexy offer, something really appealing. You need good management always, right? But also, you're looking between the filing and the audit and the marketing, you're looking at some upfront costs as well, about $200 to $250K. Plenty of good companies that have great management, but that don't necessarily have that seed cash, right? They're raising capital. So I've also put together a group of bridge investors that will loan for the fees. And so that pretty much gives us basically a machine that we can find great companies with good management, throw them in, bridge the capital, get them up and running, get them raising, and then I come on board as an advisor as well. And so I'm excited about it. I think we'll be able to raise about $1 billion collectively over the next year or two, and this will change the face of Puerto Rico and, of course, some of our members globally.
You know, from everything you're saying, it sounds like you're slowly going to take over Puerto Rico and change the government and the banking system.
No, unfortunately, I can't do anything. The person to do that is going to have to be Puerto Rican, right? But
why? It's a state like any other state, except it has a different title.
It's cultural. It's cultural. I just don't think it would work. You know, it's interesting to note, up until the 40s, all the leadership in Puerto Rico were just Americans, not Puerto Ricans. And Puerto Ricans are Americans, but they were not Puerto Rican. And
it wasn't. I'm a Canadian, so the distinction doesn't make sense to me. It's a part of America. Yeah. But they call themselves Puerto Ricans. They don't call themselves like the Cubans in Miami. They don't call themselves Cubans. They're Americans.
But now they call themselves Cubans too.
Well, understood, but it's in a different way. So in Puerto Rico, it's like they think of themselves as a separate country, but they're not. They're actually part of the United States. So with the kind of relationships you're developing and the kind of funds
but also just going back a second, that relationship, them being Puerto Ricans, it goes back way deeper than they became Americans in the last century. But they were Spain occupied them for centuries. So it just goes deeper than that. Honestly, I consider myself... But
it's not even relevant, though, whether the Puerto Rican or not, because you're still going to have the relationships with the Puerto Ricans.
I mean, I agree with you on all of this. I believe that we are all just people. But at the end of the day, look, we are how we are. Life is how it is. I look at myself as a guest in Puerto Rico, wanting to create as much good as I can.
And they see you as that, don't they? Somebody who's trying to create something.
Most do, not all, but most do. I mean, it's. I'm just there to do the best I can. Help people. I don't do it for nothing. I mean, I'm my businesses are for profit. San Juan Social Club is just a passion project, but I have businesses like my capital acquisition vehicle will be financially profitable for me too. But I like projects where I can do well and do well for others also. Those are my favorite projects. And
that's what you're known for, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, it's just fun to be able to make a difference and make an impact. And do well financially too.
So if you could change something about Puerto Rico, because when on the first day of this last meeting, you had a couple of officials from Puerto Rico, and they stood there on stage side by side with you. Mm-hmm. So it sounds to me like the government, the government that exists at this time, is actually supporting what you're trying to accomplish. They're behind you.
Yes, I would say mostly.
So what would be the big challenges that you want to overcome here?
It's complicated. What challenges do I want to overcome in Puerto Rico? Well, I just want to make Puerto Rico a better place than when I got here. That's all.
Well,
it's a simple mission.
No, I understand that. Honestly, Daven, I really appreciate your time. I know
My
you're
pleasure.
incredibly busy, and I hope we can have a part two because there's so much more about you. And when people meet you, that like I hear 20 different stories. It's almost like there's 20 different people.
Yeah.
And you're just a whirlwind.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be really interesting to get to know you even further, and
Yeah.
we'll do some more talking.
Let's do it again.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me, Sammy.